right. So, hey out there, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I totally appreciate you all coming to hear my perspective on starting a cannabis business in this industry. We started our retail dispensary back in 2017, and it's just been a wild ride this whole time. So exciting, learned so much. And as Lisa was talking, it just reminded me of how green I was when I first started out. So you can start from anywhere, and I definitely just want to jump right in and let's get started. All right. I'm just waiting for my little presentation, but here we go. Like I said, we started in 2017, and I've learned so much along the way. And I'm just going to give you guys a few little jewels that I've learned along the way. As I go through the presentation, feel free to drop questions or comments in the chat, and I'll save some time towards the end to get to those and be able to interact with you guys a little bit at the end. All right? Cool. So let's go. All right, sorry, I'm not seeing my presentation, but I got it right here, so we're all good. So my first tip on starting a cannabis business, whether you're thinking about doing an edible company, topicals, processing, or doing a grow business or a retail dispensary, the first step that you want to do is build your team. And as you build your team out, be thinking about what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and play up your weaknesses. Whoever is on your team should be a complement, a yin to your yang, right? So that you can definitely, like for me, I had to learn sales. I had to really grow as a salesperson because retail is all sales, right? So my partner is awesome with sales. He just takes everything over, and I learned so much from him. So you definitely want to pick a partner that you can learn from and that you guys can grow together. I'm more hands-on with like the spreadsheets and the computer piece. So that is my strength that I bring in. I bring in so many other strengths, but I'm just giving some examples. So make sure that as you build your team, that you're doing that as well. And then anytime you get into this industry, you definitely want to know about the taxes. Oh my God, to retail dispensaries, taxes are just so important. So make sure you have an amazing accountant or a bookkeeper or somebody else on your team that is a numbers person who's going to tell you those numbers, who's going to help you with that piece, because your business can only be successful when you know all the pieces that is going to drive your profit margin and your cost of goods and all of those things. So make sure you have that as well. And then metric. Metric is the magic inventory. This is not the acronym for metric, just so you know, but it's the magic inventory tracking system. It definitely keeps track of all of your inventory and everything that you're bringing in, whether you are a grower or a processor or a retail dispensary. So your thing there is to definitely connect with them, go through all of their trainings, and then also make sure that you have somebody's phone number and email on deck. So if you have a question, you can shoot them an email or you can get in contact with them to keep your business tight, right? You want to stay on top of your inventory. So that should be a part of your team as well. Another piece on your team is definitely knowing somebody at the OLCC. The best thing that you can do for that is contact them, get an email address or a phone number, and put that in your repertoire as well. So you want to make sure that when you build your team is comprised of all the key pieces that you are going to need to be successful in this industry. All right. And then another piece here. Let me make this a little bigger. All right, so within the team, you're going to have people that are actually a part of the business, and then you're going to have those ancillary pieces that I just mentioned that are outside of your business, because the OLCC is definitely not like part of your business, right? But they are essential in knowing like what the regulations are, who can you talk to if you have questions. But within your team who's actually a part of your business, it is so important to have things spelled out so you know what the expectations are. And I mean, spell it out to the letter so everybody knows what their responsibilities are, what's expected of them, and things don't get dropped or missed. So that's going to be super important to building out your team as well. All right. So the next piece is to know the industry. So being here in the Tokeativity event is the one key piece, because now you can start to network. You can branch out. These are all people that are in the industry. So this is a great networking piece. This is where I started as well. Tokeativity events were not only fun, but they were also informative. And it was a great way for me to network and to get to know people in the industry so that you can, again, build out those ancillary pieces in your team. So make sure you also are conducting some extensive research. The OLCC website, if you are here in Oregon, that's a great resource. If you're not here in Oregon and you are outside of Oregon, check what other regulatory bodies are governing the marijuana programs in your state. So you want to make sure that you go through the website, that you check out what regulations are, and that you just are aware of that, because that's going to make your business as well. I know there's fees and fines if you compromise a rule or if you do something that is not within the guidelines of the cannabis industry. So you just want to protect yourself and protect your business. So make sure you guys do that as well. And then the key piece, you can't start any business without funding. So some people are lucky enough to have access to huge amounts of capital. If you have capital, go ahead and invest in yourself, invest in your dream, and put that capital to work. But make sure you're very strategic in how you do that. What is going to give you a return on your investment, and what is going to be a more riskier investment? So do your research in those things. If you do not have access to capital, get creative with funding. Be prepared to use your personal savings or look for grants. There's lots of programs out here now within the cannabis industry. There aren't lots, but there are some programs out there that offer grant money for startups. So do your research there. If you have questions, be sure to drop them in the chat, because I can answer some of those questions as well. And I know we're pushing up on the time, but okay. So then the other piece to getting creative is having investors or getting angel funding. So that's another aspect to funding. So make sure that you have your business plan ready, spell everything out, get a market snapshot so you can kind of see like what would be the return on your investment if you were to invest in a particular industry. And then also, how much does everything cost? Here in Oregon, we're pretty lucky that our licensing fees are a lot lower than other states. I know some states, they have licensing fees that are $60,000 and above. Here in Oregon, our licensing fees are pretty low in retrospect of that. All right. And so the next piece is, are you going to employ anyone? If you are planning to employ people, look within your network. And again, look within the industry. I think a great tip for starting out in this industry, if you don't have any experience, or if you've only kind of dreamed of starting an edible business or some other kind of industry business, is to go into a company that you admire, maybe an edible that you like, look for a job and start there. Start at the very base. I think that that's a great way to learn the industry ins and outs, and then to see what you like about those things and what you can take away. And then also the mistakes or some other things that the company might be doing that you want to grow from and make sure that you learn from, right? It's best to learn from other people's experiences than to experience it and learn those mistakes on your own. But we have to do both, right? So you just pick out which, so yeah, we have to do both. So, all right. And then within your network, if you're hiring from within your network, make sure they have a skill set that you can use, right? Don't just hire your friend because they need a job. Hire your friend because they're great at X, Y, or Z, and it's going to be an asset to your business. So be very careful with that as well, because you don't want to ruin any friendships. I'm pretty sure you've heard the stories, but you want to make sure that you're hiring based on their skills and not to do them a favor. All right. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about us starting out. We started out in 2017, and we started with some very humble beginnings. So we started out, we just had a few strains on the shelf, and we basically just gave it our all. We put our whole heart and soul into this business. And so that's why it is so close to me right now, because we definitely just poured it all in. All right. And so when we started out in 2017, we had like one package of cookies. We didn't have any pre-rolls. And we were so just like ready and excited to be in the industry, but we hadn't done a lot of research. So it was just a lot of hard work and grit that brought us to where we are today, and a refusal to give up. And so with that, I just want to encourage you to do the same. Make sure that you pour your heart into your dream and that you do not give up no matter what. We hit some roadblocks. We had like 12 employees and went down to 2 employees. Like, it's been a wild ride, but it's been so much fun. And if you just continue on and keep dreaming, then I'm sure your cannabis business will be successful too. All right. I just want to thank everybody. Again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat, and then I will definitely. Oh, I think I see. It says I had to share my screen for my presentation. Totally fine. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat, and I would love to interact with you guys.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Nicole. That was like such a really cool window into your experience. I know it's sort of hard to abbreviate all the things that you've been through in a short amount of time. And, you know, we do have a couple of minutes here before we have our next guest on. And I wanted to hit home some of the points that you made. You mentioned about building your team and working with your strengths and weaknesses and finding the yin to your yang. How did you go about finding out if the people that you were, you know, trying to work with were, you know, had strengths that you didn't have? Like, was it trial and error, or did you have a certain methodology that you approached it with?
Yeah, definitely. We actually did extensive interviews. And when I mean extensive, we were like, you know, asking about like, what is your sign? You know, what is your, and then also when you do those extensive interviews, just remembering, you know, all the employee regulations and laws and stuff. But like, how compatible are you with this business? Are they charismatic? If we're looking for a bud tender, do they come into the interview like, hey, I'm so and so? Because when you're looking for a bud tender, you want somebody that's going to welcome them into the shop like, hey, what's up, y'all? What kind of vibe you trying to get? So that's what we were looking for. And so that's what we were looking for in the interview. So we got super specific about what we were looking for. And then if we had somebody who wasn't that excited about it, it was like, you know, maybe inventory might be your thing instead of interacting with people.
I really appreciate that wisdom. Interviewing folks is so important because it's like you get to set what is important to you, and that whole Q&A portion of the getting to know you when you're talking to somebody new is the best opportunity to get like this window into how the other people are going to work and what the expectations are.
Yeah.
So interesting also that you went from 12 employees to 2, and that you've been through this whole like roller coaster ride. And I'm sure everybody has had different experiences as a business owner who has had employees and all the roller coaster rides we've all had to go through. For those of you who are just joining us or maybe watching later, in regards to the OLCC is actually like the regulatory, I don't know what to call it exactly. The regulations. It's the people that run the regulations here in Oregon.
Yeah.
And And there are lots of different regulations in different states. Our whole community is coming from different places, and so if it's not the OLCC here in Oregon, it's something similar in your particular state. So in regards to capital and trying to get capital for your business, what were some of your approaches? You mentioned getting creative with funding. We're definitely familiar with that. But can you share a little bit of insight into that process for yourself?
Definitely. So what we did is, one of the plights for us and a challenge for African Americans is coming up with funding, having access to capital. And so, fortunately, we had an extensive savings, and we were able to use our savings to start our business. We had to be super strategic with that, though, because it's like once it's gone, it's gone. And so, we were very strategic in using that, but we definitely were fortunate enough to have a savings. And then that's how we had access to capital. There are grants out there now. There weren't any at the time when we were starting businesses, but there are startup grants now that people can tap into for starting cannabis businesses.
That's so important. And I know that's been like a huge challenge for the BIPOC community as well as women-owned businesses. And really appreciate you talking about that. Last question here, and this is something I ask a lot of like cannapreneurs is, when you are, challenged, you're having these challenges, you kind of think, I don't know if I could do this. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I can do this anymore. What is it that you tell yourself to kind of get up and do it again the next day?
This industry is a baby compared to other industries. Like, we are literally on the very beginnings of this. And 20, 30 years from now, I don't want to look back on my life and be like, I tapped out within 5 or 10 years. I want to say that no, I stuck with it. I've been in this industry since the beginning because, like, 2017 is what the industry was like 2 or 3 years young still. So that is what keeps me going, is the longevity and the ability to be able to look back and be like, I've been in here since like literally the beginning. So that's something that definitely keeps me going. There's so much space here for everyone in this industry. There are so many new smokers coming up, like every day somebody turns 21, right? And if you think about it, this industry is so vast here in the United States, and there's space for everyone. And I just always feel like I can just keep going and keep going, but it does get hard. But I definitely, when I look back, I don't want to say that I gave up. So that's what keeps me going.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, for taking a step out of your 420 at your dispensary. We really appreciate you and all you've done and your wisdom here in this space. And I wish you the best of luck today and always. We're here
Thank
for
you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for having me. And I just want to say happy 420, everybody.